Welcome back, guys, to another video, and I'm going to be doing a top 10 on my favorite Nintendo games of all time. So let's go. Now, doing a top 10 on one of my most nostalgic systems of all time. The Nintendo was the console that started it all. That's what got me into video games. It was a pretty hard task to do. So after the countdown, I'm going to mention a couple of games that definitely deserve an honorable mention, but unfortunately didn't make the countdown.
Number 10 on the countdown is Guardian Legend. Now, this was a game that honestly I didn't hear a whole lot of people talk about when I was younger. It wasn't until I joined the YouTube gaming community that I found out that this game had a cult following, and it rightfully so. It's such a niche title for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Mixing top-down action RPG elements with some shoot-'em-up action, who could not want to play this? Number 9 is Excitebike. Now, without jumping in too many puns, I was very excited to play this game when I was younger. This was the game that really introduced me to customization and making your own tracks. That added hours of gameplay with me and my buddies on the weekends to see who could beat whose record and who could make the craziest track ever. Number 8 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. Now, not only is this one of my favorite Nintendo games of all time, but it's also one of my favorite arcade games of all time. And one of these days, I would love to own the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cabinet. But for now, I can play the awesome port on the Nintendo Entertainment System. I used to spend endless quarters playing this game with all my friends and at Showbiz Pizza or Chuck E. Cheese. And once I found out that it was coming out for the Nintendo Entertainment System, that was definitely on my wish list. Number 7 is Dragon Warrior. Now, this was the game that introduced me to the RPG genre. I was only 7 years old at the time when I first played this game, and honestly, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But after hours of figuring this game out, I realized that I was a part of a awesome journey, saving the world, saving the princess, and not only did it introduce me to an awesome genre, but it also opened my eyes to show me how much of an impact a video game can make with an awesome story and soundtrack. Number 6 is Contra. Now, this is the game that you would definitely want to have on a nice rental weekend, because this game gave you all your money's worth. This is back when games didn't hold your hand and they were very, very difficult. If you were skillful enough, you definitely deserved those bragging rights beating this game with just 3 lives. Number 5, The Legend of Zelda. Now, I don't think a top 10 Nintendo list would be complete without this timeless classic, and I hold this title very dear to my heart because I'm a huge Legend of Zelda fan, and I actually remember looking in all the little hint books and Nintendo Powers and figuring out how to play this game. Because honestly, when I first played this game, I only played games that were level-based. I had no idea what a free-for-all exploration game was all about, and this definitely introduced me to it, and I had so much fun exploring it for the first time. Number 4, Blaster Master. Now, this is one of the more difficult Nintendo titles I played as a kid, and to this day it still has some difficulty to it, but I still don't care. This game honestly has one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard in a Nintendo title, and other than the soundtrack, the gameplay is very different from some other titles in the sense that you're controlling a 2D style tank or top-down action platformer. It was so much fun, and like Metroid and Legend of Zelda, it was more about exploration than level-based. Sometimes you'd have to go back with certain items and just plow through areas that you had already been through before, and just rediscovering every familiar little nook and cranny and just being captivated by an awesome game. Number 3, Mega Man 2. Now, I'm a huge Mega Man fan, and this is by far my favorite in the series, and like many others, there's just something special about this game that really makes you keep going back. Sure, it might be the different Robot Masters, which in my opinion are some of the best Robot Masters in the whole franchise, but also the soundtrack, the challenging platforms. This game is just so freaking awesome, and I'm very thankful that I had the chance to play this game at a young age and discover this for the first time. Number 2, Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. Now, while I'm a huge fan of the first Castlevania, and I made a whole video talking about my memories of the whole series, Castlevania 3 took everything we loved about the first game and made it better. You had more characters to play as, alternate routes through different levels, a challenging action platform, and great story. Not to mention the soundtrack is out of this world. This is by far one of my favorite classic Castlevanias of all time. And my number 1 favorite Nintendo game of all time is Super Mario Bros. 3. And honestly, a lot of you guys are watching this. This is probably one of your top picks as well because it's such a classic title. And while I'm a bigger fan of Super Mario World, Super Mario Bros. 3 has a very special place in my heart because this is the first Nintendo game I've ever played. I got this when I got my Nintendo for Christmas when I was just a little kid, and honestly, I didn't realize how big of a title this was, but the Wizard had just came out, and I remember all my friends in my neighborhood couldn't believe I had this title, and I had nothing to compare it to. But even then, I knew I had something special, and to this day, it's still one of my favorite games. I can put it in any time. This is a comfort game. You could just be in the shitty mood, play some Super Mario Bros. 3, and everything's gonna be alright.
And now, some honorable mentions.
Strider, Monster Party, Maniac Mansion, Star Tropics, Crystallis, DuckTales, and Donkey Kong.
So anyway, guys, that is my top 10 favorite Nintendo games of all time. And, you know, after I make this video, there's still going to be some games that I really wish I could have put in this list because, honestly, there's so many great games on this system, and it's definitely a console I still play to this day, and I still have that nostalgia with it. It's definitely a timeless console. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching and thanks for subscribing. And as always, happy gaming.